You know, Minnesotans, I get it. It gets cold and, you get angry about things, but dang, man, there's limits. Hi everyone, welcome to today's badge cam lesson here at Active Self-Protection, where every day we post an analysis of a real-life use of force caught on camera so that our training and our practice can be more evidence-based. I'm your host, John Correa.
I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Today's video is sponsored by Delete Me. Delete Me is who I choose to help me keep my family safe from having my information brokered on the internet. I have a story about this, a personal one, where I recently had to file an injunction against harassment against somebody, and I am so glad for all of 2024 that I have been using Delete Me to keep my personal information off the internet, because that was absolutely part of them not having my home address, of them not having other contact information, of knowing how to get hold of my family to harass them. This was an incredibly important part of me protecting my family from somebody who really went a little bit crazy. And I am super grateful to Delete Me for that. They kept all of my data away from the information brokers, away from it being sold, and posted online where any yahoo, including somebody who wouldn't stop harassing me, could find it. I am very grateful to Delete Me, and I recommend their service highly. It worked fantastic for me. Get 20% off Delete Me US consumer plans by going to joindeleteme.com/ASP and using code ASP at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/ASP and use code ASP at checkout. Trooper has been dispatched here to a car crash on the side of the road. Unbeknownst to him, he's gonna pull up to the car here, and there's not gonna be a driver in it because that driver has gone off down the road. He doesn't know that this guy has had 3 previous DWIs and is driving on a canceled license. And so he is gonna pull up to this guy and make contact with him. And the guy's not real interested in talking with the trooper. I wonder why. Let's listen in to how the interaction goes from here.
What's up? Get your hands in the pocket. Where are you walking from? The car? No. No? Whose car is that?
I have no idea.
How come they're saying you're walking from it?
I have no idea.
Alright, got ID on you?
I don't.
Alright, let's have a seat in my car then.
Sorry
No.
No, you don't have authority over me. This is God's body, sir. This is God's son.
Start me in the
Start me in the car, please. Copy. Where's your address? Here's your deal. On the ground fighting.
You don't have authority over me. You don't have authority over me.
Do not reach for my fucking gun. Do not reach for my fucking...
You don't have authority over me.
That's where I'm out here.
This is God's body, not yours. You're not
Sure.
alive, dude.
You're under a fucking...
No, I'm
Trooper's on the
not.
ground being pinned down.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I didn't do anything wrong.
All cars, start that way.
No, stop. I didn't do anything wrong. Let it go. No. Let it go. No. Let it go. I didn't do anything wrong. Are you able to grab your taser, sir? I didn't do anything wrong. Let his fucking gun go, you dumbass.
No.
Let it go. I'll fuck you up.
Right.
Let it go. What is wrong with you? Stop. I didn't do it. Seriously? I didn't do anything wrong. Stop his fucking gun, dumbass. Stop. Stop, man. Just fucking stop.
Units in Rosenthal then, just walk to the mom. How do you leave the so the rest of the back door?
God, please.
Which one's on shoulder or is he medium?
On shoulder.
Copy, taser deployed.
Wait for me.
I got you, boss. I got you.
Appreciate you, man.
hopping the light. So it's like fucking hopping the light.
I'll be clear.
You sure?
340.
I'm not going to the suicide.
Hands on your back. Hands on your back. Hands on your back. Do it now. Okay. I got locked up. I got locked up. Lock up, too. I got locked up. I got locked up. Good. Appreciate it. All right, you got him.
Resume normal traffic, law 1 and 2039.
All right? Yeah, I got him.
3831 for 1.
I was behind him and he veered off. He went straight across. And the lady stopped helping him around. He said when the cops about to start walking. I was pulling off, but I saw him, and he had his fucking gun. I was like, holy shit. Yeah. So I dropped out of the window. I was pulling off. That's all I was.
Lieutenant, copy.
10-4 monitoring.
Both duty have locals in the road. Sure do. Troopers on the ground being pinned down. All cars, start that way. Metro, is he on shoulder or is he in median?
On the shoulder.
Copy, taser deployed.
This angle here, a little blown out, hard to see because it's from a traffic camera that's kind of down the road a little ways. But you can see the trooper here really wrestling with this guy who's got him inside control. And then the bystander is going to pull up here, see what's going on, and somehow discern that the officer is being fought with here and come to his aid. And man, if you go and read the news stories that I've linked in the description, unbelievably, this guy was charged and convicted of aggravated assault on a police officer, attempting to disarm a police officer, and DWI. It was his 4th DWI, and he got probation for this. He got 366 days in jail, suspended, and 3 years of probation on this, which is just mind-boggling to me. I mean, I just want to ask the prosecutor what the heck, using much stronger language than that. Thankfully, the trooper was not harmed, and I don't think our bystander here should probably have to buy himself a beer at any bar in the entire state for the rest of his life. I don't know what it is in 2024, or this was a little earlier than that, but I mean, I don't know. I was raised you're not supposed to throw punches at cops.
I was also raised that if you punch a cop, you get more than probation, so who knows?
I mean, gosh, Mike, you know, this is, okay, it's slippery, wet, icy conditions, and we've got a car wreck. Shocker, right? I don't think the officer, the trooper here comes into this thinking, I'm going to have to fight for my life here for a minute, but seldom do you show up to shift thinking that's going to happen.
Once again, not probably on his bingo card when he was sipping his coffee at roll call this was going to occur, but here we are. Yeah, and I just want to go out of my way to say that the side of a freeway is an inherently dangerous environment. So even before you have a resistive subject, you're already in a bad spot. You're already at risk of getting creamed by a semi-trailer. So you're already kind of on edge in this situation. You're kind of looking down the road to make sure no one's careening into your patrol car or into the car that's behind you. So when you add on top of that a resistive subject, it's a really dangerous environment. I think this trooper, we'll talk about it here in a moment, I think he got a little closer than I would have liked to see him get, but then again, he didn't have a lot of options.
It's really a tough spot to be in, right? So remember, officers, agents, deputies, troopers, hey, treat every call like it could go right to heck. Now, he gets close to this guy. He clearly is being hinky from the get-go. And now officer, our trooper puts his hands on him. And you recognize here, wait a minute, if I'm going to put hands on this guy because he's wanting to get away from me, we know he's already showing those furtive gestures. You need to be ready for this to go sideways. Now, I'm not blaming him, Mike, for getting taken down here. It's slippery, it's icy, it's wet, it's late. But, having the mental preparation that says, man, if this goes sideways, I'm going to win, lets you flip that switch a little faster.
Yep, absolutely. You have to be in that mindset at all times when you're interacting with a potential bad guy on the street. You have to always be prepared for that person to take a swing, to reach for your gun, to do whatever. People are unpredictable. And this particular punch that we're about to see that we saw in the video earlier, I feel like the bad guy kind of signaled that pretty strongly. Like he brought that from, all the way from Milwaukee. So if you are watching this, officers, deputies, troopers, take this as a lesson. If you're going to get that close, you need to be doing something like putting the person in custody or putting cuffs on them or something, because it's too close for comfort for me. We see these videos in training, and I think a lot of times we're like, oh, it won't happen to me. It won't be me. It won't happen, on my shift. And it does, and it will. So I think it's really critical here to pay attention to this and be like, hey, if I'm going to be this close, it's for a reason, and it's very briefly. Don't linger too close to the bad guy like that.
And just recognizing, again, you don't have to be paranoid, and you don't have to treat everyone like they are animals or terrible, but you do have to say, wait a minute, when it goes down, I'm ready for it. And Mike here, I think he didn't see this big right hand coming, and you got to recognize that right hand is where he's coming from with the danger, and that could easily have had a knife or even a gun.
Yeah, absolutely. As we talked before we hit the record button, John, you mentioned, and you're much better with your empty hand skills than I've ever been. But I got to say, you mentioning the fact that, hey, get that other hand up, be ready for that right hand to come swinging from Milwaukee. Get your defensive hand up. He had time. Had he been paying more attention to that arm, I'm not trying to criticize this trooper too much. He did a pretty darn good job considering, but be aware and be ready for that swing. And like you said, that it could have been not an empty hand. It could have been a knife or a gun or a rock or whatever. Fortunately, nothing was in his hand, but that's something we shouldn't take that for granted.
I really think you got to recognize the most likely attack that you're going to face is that big looping right hand. That's that kind of, barroom brawl that so many guys go for. And so understanding that even if I have hands on somebody, that my defensive fence means when that right shoulder goes back, I am diving into that problem and preventing it from coming at me so it doesn't hit me direct. Even if I shoulder shrug or just use a little bit of kind of that Philly shell that they call that, it can really make a difference. And I know if I'm using words that you're like, John, what are those words? Please get to the mats. Please get to some good defensive tactics training. And officers, please hear me. You take your defensive tactics training seriously. Because if you can't do this stuff on the mats with a kind of cooperative and, maybe, competitive opponent, a training partner, then when somebody wants to hurt you, you're not going to be able to do it. Now you see him here, tries to get the guy into his guard, and I think he tries that, and now our bad guy gets him into side control instead. I really do think that having some grounded skills off your back is important. And Mike, this is kind of like white belt jiu-jitsu stuff, of knowing how to get out of a bad position, get yourself into a better position, reverse positions on somebody who's on top of you. And the one thing that I think cops need to really be aware of in that, and that's why their defensive tactics are a little unique, is protecting your gun while you do that. So I can't say it again enough times. Yeah, maybe get some off-duty training, but make sure that it involves protecting your gun.
Okay, we say this time and again. I'm sure some people are tired of hearing it, but a lot of agencies that I've interacted with over the years don't have ongoing DT the way they should. They have a mandated thing they got to do. Okay, this quarter we're going to shoot, we're going to qualify, we're going to do an advanced firearm training exercise, and then we're going to do handcuffing. And it's this sort of slap and tickle, pardon my language, half-assed DT. Look, if you're not getting it from your agency, you got to go out and get it on your own. Go out and take some self-defense classes, take jiu-jitsu, do something, because even though your agency might be at fault for not training you properly, it's your butt out there on the line, out in the field, who's going to get because you're going to have a very bad day dealing with a bad guy like this. This is a determined attacker, as we see here. He was not messing around. He knew, I'm sure he probably knew before he ever contacted this officer, this is what he was going to do. He was going to fight and try to get away and try to take a gun. And here we see him really, really determined. Man, I am so glad that this free beer for life Samaritan showed up when he did, because this was not going well.
Yeah, it's true. Rule number one here of Zombieland, right? Cardio. Make sure, officers, that you've got it. Also, this is one where your kind of jiu-jitsu training, when you're not working with a gun, gets after you a little bit, because this is when you turn away from him, because you want your gun on the ground, your gun hip, his right hip, on the ground to protect the gun. So you're actually going to show him your back, which you generally won't do in jiu-jitsu, though they do it now in no-gi and roll and turtle and all those things. Bystander. Okay, my one complaint here, Mike, and it's not a complaint, it's just a suggestion. Announce yourself to the officer, deputy, trooper, and ask if he needs help, because you don't want him to think that you were the bad guy too and you end up getting shot. Other than that, I mean, again, a tiny thing, the trooper really quickly realizes this guy's on his team. Props to him for being willing to step in. And I'd encourage you, even if you're not really pro-cop, even if you're anti-cop, this doesn't end in a good way for our resistor here. It's not like he's going to win this contest, take the gun, shoot the cop, and then get away with it for the rest of his life. So even if you're anti-cop, you want to get this guy into custody so that he doesn't end up getting killed.
Yeah, something I did notice just now as you were talking, John, I noticed the trooper appears his plan, and it's not a bad plan, his plan was to keep that gun locked down. He probably had hands on top of the gun to keep it in place. And he called for backup. I think his strategy, such as it is, was to just stay there locked in and wait for backup, which, like I said, isn't the worst strategy. If you're not struggling anymore, it gives you the breath and the time to relax a little bit and go, okay, we're just going to sit here until backup shows up. Didn't have to wait for backup because this guy shows up. Folks, if you look in the description, there should be some news stories linked. I highly recommend you watch the interview with our Good Samaritan. He's a funny guy. He's the kind of guy you would want to have a beer with. So if you live in Minnesota, find this man, buy him a beer, tell him I said hello, would you?
And also, I love here that when finally we get other troopers showing up, he does a good job of identifying himself because, of course, they don't know who the heck he is. And so as they show up, he is going to wave a hand at them and be like, yo, man, I'm a good guy. Help me. I'm helping out here, and deserves every bit of commendation. I do think the trooper is lucky that the guy showed up and didn't necessarily have that luck in the bank and couldn't have counted on that. So officers, deputies, troopers, please hear me. You really want to be able to solve this conflict yourself because chances are you're going to have to. Counting on a good Samaritan bystander is hope, not a strategy. So get to the mats, get your defensive training, plan and execute as best you can so that you know how to prevent this kind of thing from happening if you can, and that you have the temerity, the will, the attitude that says, no, I'm much better at this than you are, so I don't want to fight you because I don't want you to get hurt today. All things considered, thank God this trooper came out of this okay. I'm aghast and appalled at the prosecution and the judge giving this guy probation. I think that's just horrifically bad. But thankfully, the trooper goes back to work another day because he covered his ass.